not all pumps are created equal. When brands ask me to write hospital grade, I actually tell them no. I'm like, tell me what about this is more hospital grade. Like, don't even start with me. I get so angry about it. Flanges have sizes, and you need to know what size you are, because otherwise you could be a size 6 shoe wearing a size 10, and that's obviously not going to be very conducive for your pumping journey.
Motherhood is all-consuming.
Having babies, nursing, feeling the fear of loving someone that much.
And there's this baby on your chest, and boom, your entire life has changed.
It's a privilege of being your child's safest space and watching your heart walk around outside of your body.
The truth is, I can be having the best time being a mum 1 minute, and then the next I'm questioning all my life choices.
I'm Lo Mansfield, your host of the Lo and Behold podcast. Mama of 4 littles, former labor and postpartum RN, CLC, and your new best friend in the messy middle space of all the choices you are making in pregnancy, birth, and motherhood. If there is one thing I know after years of delivering babies at the bedside and then having and now raising those 4 of my own, it is that there is no such thing as a best way to do any of this. And we're leaning into that truth here. With a mix of real life and what the textbook says, expert insights, and practical applications, each week we're making our way towards stories that we participate in, stories that we are honest about, and stories that are ours. This is the Lo and Behold podcast. Today's guest was and is so easy to talk to, and I'm sure that translates so well to the ways that she can support you, the ways that she supports other moms. I have Tamari Jacob with me today. She is a certified lactation consultant, mom of 4, and founder of One with a Pump. So if you've heard of it, or you perhaps follow her on any of the social media platforms, that is who is my guest today. After spending countless hours attached to a breast pump herself, she realized that while breastfeeding may be natural, pumping is definitely not, and that you, moms, you deserve better support. Today, Tamari helps thousands of breastfeeding and pumping moms navigate things like milk supply, flange sizing, pumping schedules, returning to work, and all of these other things that no one really talks about before your baby arrives, right? Through her online community of more than 200,000 moms, courses, workshops, support programs, she combines evidence-based information with also practical advice, humor, you'll pick up on that a little bit today, and just a healthy dose of reality. Really, that is what I think you will pick up on, is that healthy dose of reality. Tamari's mission is just to help moms like you feel more confident, more informed, and more supported, because motherhood is hard enough as it is without having to Google, is this normal at 2 a.m. while you are also attached to a pump. Tamari, I am so glad to have you here with me today. Why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself, let us know where you are, because I can see you're in your children's bedroom, and we will just go from there.
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Tamari from One with the Pump, or people that see me on the street will say the pump lady. You know, that works as well.
That's right.
I'm Tamari from One with the Pump, currently live from my children's bedroom, because that's where my office is, because we need to make it work one way or another. So he currently sleeps, takes his morning nap inside of my large, thank God, large closet, and then I have his bedroom. And you know what? We make it work one way or another. That's what matters.
That's hilarious. I just love pointing it out. And I know we talked about it before we started, but I just think it's just proof of moms just figuring it out, all the things, making 100%. It work.
we just have to make it work. I feel like that's just how the mom life goes. And if you don't do that, you're too stressed all the time. So the best thing you can do for yourself is just make it work.
Look at, that's the theme. We could just end the podcast episode right there.
I love it.
Make it work, guys. Make it work.
Just make it work.
All right. Obviously, you are the pump lady, and that's what we kind of want to get into today. I'm assuming, and I've, seen what you do online, read your bios, things like that, that this is personal, right? This endeavor to support others in pumping. Give us the really quick recap of why you actually do what you do. Yeah, how long you've been doing it? Actually, I didn't see that anywhere.
Yeah.
But I think you've been around for a long time. So let's hear it.
I have been around since 2020. I think, I'm one of those COVID ones that was we're very, we'll do it. Very happy that it happened then. But my real journey started in 2017 when I had my first son. I have 4 children as of now. And I really wanted to nurse him. Didn't really think much of it, as most first-time moms do. I took a birth class. Really was not thinking about anything past the labor. I remember my whole thing, I was telling my husband I was just nervous about the epidural and the labor. I wasn't really thinking anything past that. And I think that's very common. Now, the problem is that when you don't think anything past it, you don't realize how detrimental that is to your journey to not know what you're doing regarding pumping or nursing. So I literally had no idea anything about nursing, anything about pumping. I just didn't know anything about it. And this delicious, gorgeous boy came out and he absolutely refused to latch. Like, not happening, wasn't doing it. My mom and I were in her house. He is screaming. I somehow, like, we figured out enough to get the pump out. I'm pumping one side while she's feeding the 30, the half an ounce to him. And we're like switching off back and forth. Pure and absolute chaos. I basically tried nursing him for 2 months. Countless lactation consultants, tons and tons of money, buying every product on the shelf. Nothing worked. I ended up, and I call it being forced into exclusive pumping because it wasn't my choice. I didn't want to do it. And exclusive pumping, what that means is that you only pump. So you pump and then you put the milk into the bottles and you give the bottles to the baby. So he got almost 100% breast milk, but he got it in bottles. He did not latch from me. And it was a very, very difficult time for me. It was 2017. I don't remember, every time I see this story, I don't remember if Instagram was actually a thing, but it definitely wasn't what it was now because there was no way to like search for what I was looking for on there. Because I remember like looking for blogs. So that's like where we were at. And I found a couple of people who blogged, and then I found like a Facebook page, and I was like, okay, I guess this is a thing. Ended up exclusively pumping. Never loved it, but kind of just made it through. And then was pregnant with my daughter, and I was like, okay, this time we're gonna be smart. We're gonna try again. But then she ended up being born in March of 2020, and if no one else remembers what happened in March of 2020, the entire world shut down. So I was not able to get any help. Again, in March there was no Zoom either. It was like that real limbo. So I ended up exclusively pumping for her again, not by choice. But this time, a bunch of my friends had babies at the same time, and I was like, I clearly kind of knew what I was doing a little bit because I had my first. So I was like, let me just put it into an Instagram for my friends. And thankfully, we are here today because of that Instagram for my friends, which led me to being able to retire from teaching and do this full time and just help so many more moms. I have consultants now that help me and just everything I could have dreamed about, just being able to help as many moms as we can is the goal.
It's so cool. I had my first in at the very end of 2016. So we were right there at the same time. And Instagram was just pictures, right? Like the very,
right?
I feel like beginning.
Pictures,
so
none of,
yeah. So there was none of this like education. I was not going there to ask a question about anything related to my baby, like not even a thought in my head. So it really is wild how quickly that has pivoted and how much that has changed, which is cool, right? Because it allows people like yourself to, totally change your own life, let alone all the people you're impacting.
100%.
But it's also a like massive just proliferation of information that can be also really hard to parse through, right? And so I think that's definitely the challenge of all of it too. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I also feel like, I don't know, were moms exclusively pumping and we just weren't hearing about it? Or has this become more of a thing like, hey, you don't want to breastfeed, you don't like breastfeeding, it's not working out, you could exclusively pump. And now there's so many products and stuff to support it even more so. Do you feel like there are more exclusively pumping because now they realize that's a viable option? Or was it just not something we heard about because the online world didn't look the same when it was 2017?
So I think it's a good question. I think it's a bit of both. Yeah, at my 40-week appointment with my son, she asked me if I was planning to breastfeed, and I said, I hope so. I hope he'll be able to latch. I don't even know how I said that. And she was like, well, you could always pump. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, well, you could just pump and put it into bottles. And that was the first time I even heard of that, even remotely. Again, we didn't have all these massive, social platforms to know that. So I heard that ever so slightly there, never heard it again from anyone. As I was going through it, I never heard of it from anyone that I was around. No one else ended up doing it. And I think that moms were doing it. I don't think they were doing it in the capacity that they were doing today, where it really is an option, especially because the amount of moms that are working. I mean, I'm sure in 2017, there were tons of moms working too. But, as every year goes on, I feel like we're just working more and more. And even moms that work from home, they still oftentimes need to pump. So I think it's just becoming a little bit more of a thing to be able to go back and forth between the two of them. And it's definitely a little bit more popular now that people know it is an option, because a lot of times people will just go straight to formula, which is fine if that's what they want. But a lot of times moms actually do want to do breast milk, but the latching isn't working. And that's where we come in and we're like, let's change your life. Let's help you figure out how to exclusively pump, how to manage this. if nursing is going well but not well enough, let's help you figure out how to nurse somewhat and then pump for the rest. Like, it's not all or nothing. And so it's definitely becoming more popular. That's for sure.
Yeah, it feels like that as well. I mean, I was at the bedside in all those years too, and we pulled out that hospital grade pump if you needed it. Like, we actually would like send you home with the whole pumping kit, which I felt like was really nice. I don't know that every hospital does that or still does it. Not that the flanges would fit most people, but anyway,
exactly. They still don't.
You know, we were getting stuff out. We would give out the manual pump though, which I thought was great. So people could have one of those. But I don't think, it felt like the plan of care was never go home. And if you need to, this could be. And maybe it's because, you know, when they were there right in front of us, the goals of breastfeeding at the breast, inclusive breastfeeding, like that conversation wasn't really going that far down the road. But it did feel like that idea of, hey, you could exclusively pump just wasn't really being tossed around that much. Or you did. Yeah. Like, I don't even have that many friends who have done it. Honestly.
Yeah, it was definitely not as popular. Yeah. And I remember when I moved to we used to live in the city, when I moved to my new neighborhood, you know, we were at like a meal and we were hanging out with friends and someone was like, oh, I exclusively pumped. And I literally was like,
were you like,
I was like, wait, you did what? And I was like, oh my God, I was so drawn to her. And I was like, wait, you also pump? Like, and I told her, I was like, I never heard of anyone that also pumped. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. I was really shocked. Like, that's how I know it wasn't so popular, because I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this other mom also pumped. I couldn't believe it. It was amazing.
Yeah. When you find your people, right?
Tell me more. And even though now I'm still friends with her like 8 years later. And I'm like, that's how I knew we were going to be friends.
Yeah. Okay.
So
you have alluded to a couple times like, oh, I just didn't really know, or they asked me what I was going to do. And I just said, I think I'm going to breastfeed or whatever. Yeah. Do you have, for moms who maybe feel exactly the same way right now, or they're saying, my plan is to breastfeed, what do you talk about? I'm sure you maybe do consultations even prenatally sometimes with people. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So what do you talk about to them when it's like, hey, let's make a quote unquote feeding plan? What does that kind of look like, saying, I'd like to breastfeed. I would like my baby to latch.
Well, that's such a good question. I think I've never been asked that before. That's a great question.
That shocks me.
I know.
Well, I just think it's like it's kind of shallow. Not the question itself isn't shallow, but the actual depth of the question.
Yeah, no.
Saying, I just want to breastfeed. Yeah. What else could they maybe be thinking of?
Yeah, and I'll just say one thing before I answer this very good question is that a lot of times, specifically on Instagram or other places, even in consultations, moms do not have the basic knowledge. And one of my most popular videos on YouTube is parts of the pump. Literally, like the basic of like, this is the tubing. For those of you guys who don't know what this is, check out my YouTube channel to find the video. But like, this is the tubing. This is what a phalange is. These phalanges come in sizes. Moms don't know this basic information. And sometimes it like really scratching that, like I'll have a consult with a mom and I'll find out instead of using a pumping bra, she's holding her phalanges for the last month. And I'm like, are you okay? Like, you shouldn't be doing that.
Are your wrists okay?
Yeah, I'm like, are you okay? And they're like, what do you mean? I didn't know there was another option. And I bet you money that there's someone that just listened to that saying, wait, I'm not supposed to be holding my phalanges. No, you're definitely not supposed to be holding your phalanges. So I love that question. And I think it's really important. Like, I did not know what the basic feeding plan is. And what like every mom going into it needs to understand is that you need to be emptying your breasts every 3 hours. So they tell you that the baby should be eating every 3 hours, but I don't think anyone has ever told me that your breasts need to also be emptied every 3 hours if you're planning to do this. Because, you know, in the hospital, I call my babies Crayola crayons. They all turn yellow. Literally, they all just get jaundice in the hospital. So they kind of like push formula on me, and I'm like not in the place to this is just a personal thing that like nursing colostrum for me just feels very stressful. So I end up pumping in the hospital and I just end up giving formula until my milk comes in. You can absolutely nurse, guys. That's just like a personal thing, and that's okay to do that. So I'll end up giving formula, but like not one person in the hospital tells me, oh, by the way, like, are you pumping or are you emptying, or like you should be doing that. So one of the main things to note about those early days of the feeding plan is that for the first 12 weeks, I mean, it obviously could be different based on how often your baby's eating, your supply, if you have a lot of milk or very little milk. Average should be emptying your breasts around every 3 hours. Emptying means either nursing or pumping. If your baby is getting a bottle, you need to be pumping. And like that's like the bold underline of what you need to know if you want to create that milk supply. Super important.
It's funny when you said nursing and or pumping. I would say also sometimes both. Like the number of times I've helped a patient, you know, being the postpartum nurse And it's like, we tried to latch this baby.
Yeah.
Maybe they kind of did something for 5 minutes, but that clearly wasn't like an effective something on the breast, actually like pulling, triggering, talking to the body. And so sometimes it's like, all right, we're going to keep trying. Your baby's really sleepy, whatever.
Yeah.
And let's also maybe have you pump for 8 minutes also, or whatever, so that we know your body's truly being stimulated. Because sometimes you're like, oh, well, my baby latched. And it's like, well, that was 3 minutes. And then they went back to sleep.
Yeah.
And if they're going to go another 3 hours, before we can get them awake again. And that's like a whole combo about doing all these things. We got to empty.
Exactly.
We got to do something.
I'll call that nursing gravy, where it's like, it's just kind of there. Like, you need to really get the potatoes. You need to pump. But like, definitely add the gravy, because we want to be able to work on that. That's kind of my analogy to moms. They're like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. So I think ultimately this idea is like, I want to breastfeed is a great, goal, period, full stop. But just thinking through, what does that look like even in the first 48 hours? Like you're saying, is there extra stimulation that we need to be doing? Are we hand expressing as well? Does that mean pumping if baby's not latching? Like that actually really means, hey, I need to empty every couple of hours. And then obviously, what does that look like moving forward as well? So I just think we need more moms showing up with a little better understanding, like you're saying, of what it means to say, oh, I want to breastfeed. Okay, there's some like process underneath that that has to be happening within that goal.
Absolutely. So if you want to go in there with the goal of breastfeeding, go with the goal of, you are most likely going to be nursing between every 2 and 3 hours, sometimes a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later. And you're going to attempt to nurse. You're going to switch sides. So like the first 3 hours, you'll start with the right side. There's no really amount of time. Sometimes it could be, of a newborn feeding could take 45 minutes. Like it's
my first took forever. 45 minutes. She was so slow.
It really takes a while. So sometimes you'll end up being like 20 minutes on one side, and then you'll put them on the other side for like another 20 minutes. It's fairly common. And then the next time you're going to start with like the left side, you'll do that side first for 20 minutes, and the other side. Now the thing is that in the early days, you have colostrum, which can be basically impossible, if not just very difficult to pump. For some moms, they can do it. For a lot of moms, it can be very difficult. So off the bat, if the nursing is going well, and how do you know if the nursing is going well? If the baby is pooping or peeing. That's how in the hospital, I mean, you also tell me you obviously dealt with this the most. Like, you guys, that's what you were looking for, right? Like when you wanted to see if nursing was going well, just poops or pees. That's what they're looking for. So the nurses are looking to make sure that the baby's having a certain amount of pooping and peeing per day. And they're really strict on that. They want to know exactly how often you're nursing and how often the baby's pooping or peeing. It's like the first thing that they'll ask, and they'll check when the baby comes in. If it's going well and the baby is pooping or peeing in the way that they need it to happen, then you'll just continue doing what you're doing. Congratulations, you maybe have a less difficult journey than 90% of the world, but like you're in that 10%, and I'm so happy for you. Fantastic. Now, what happens to the other 90% of people where it doesn't go so well? So your other options include, it can be very difficult, like I said, to pump colostrum. So you can still try. And I said, the mom wants to nurse, always start off trying to nurse. When the lactation consultants in the hospital come in, I have my feelings about them. Some of them are absolutely incredible, and some of them are absolutely horrible. I guess that's also like in every profession. Just, we're so vulnerable when we're postpartum that we remember them more. Like I remember that nasty one, but I always say that I will say I had the most amazing experience with my third and fourth. Her name was Erica, and I found her in the hospital with my fourth from my third, and I told her that she changed my whole journey. I said, I never stopped thinking about you. She was incredible, and she helped me to get the baby on a little bit, to nurse. So ask for lactation to be there to help you attempt to nurse. If it really isn't working, or they're saying the baby needs a bottle, your options then turn into, can you hand express colostrum? So you can either hand express colostrum, they'll give you like, whether it's a little cup or like a silverette, and you can put the colostrum into a syringe and just put that into the baby's mouth. If that's working, that's great. It's super annoying, but if it works, and that colostrum is obviously full of nutrients, but again, if it's working and it's going well for you, you're going to end up doing that every 3 hours, which is great. If that situation for you is just not going to happen, and that's where like I want people to know that it's amazing to do it. I personally was just like, for me, like hand expressing was just like not working. I didn't want to deal with it. So I would pump every 3 hours for about 15 minutes, which is short, but in the hospital before my milk comes in, I would tell moms to pump for 15 minutes, and then the baby gets a bottle, either formula or breast milk. And those are like a lot of different options, and they're all okay. So whichever one kind of works for you. And it doesn't need to be all like, you can do this time I'm going to hand express, but in 3 hours from now, I'm way too tired. This time I'll pump. Next time, wow, he actually nursed well, probably because the lactation consultant was here. Fantastic. This time the baby nursed. I'm like, it's okay to do a combo of all those things until your milk comes in. And once your milk comes in, well, that's a whole different animal. But, it just gets a lot easier after that. But this is at least to get you through that first week.
Right. That milk transitioning, coming in, all of that. With the ultimate goal, back to what you said, right, of you got to be emptying your breast. You've got to be stimulating the breast every couple of hours. So however you're doing that, great, but know some of these options. And I think that's what I love for moms is know the different ways to do that, particularly in these first couple of days, so that if you're like, this is not working and I'm so stressed out, okay, why don't you try hand expressing? Why don't you try the pump instead? Like that you can have some optionality, still working towards your goal of exclusive breastfeeding, exclusive pumping, feeding them bottle, but only breast. Like you can still do all of these things to work. To work towards that. Okay, quick pause for a second. I just want to talk to you about breastfeeding. If this is something you are really hoping works out for the two of you, but you are also kind of low-key wondering why so many moms say it was so much harder than expected, this is for you. I created the breastfeeding blueprint because I saw too many patients with a new baby on their chest and zero breastfeeding education to support the two of them in what was coming next. This is not something that you want to walk into without information, resources, and a place to go to when you hit those inevitable bumps in the road. Successful breastfeeding stories start before birth, and good education means you walk into those first hours, those early days, and all the weeks and months that you are wanting to follow, aware of what's normal, best steps, what's next, and how to handle challenges that might come your way. This course will help you understand your body, your baby's body, how the two of you work together, and what to do, look for, or change when things are just not right. Milk supply latching routines, pumping, sore nipples, clogged ducts, bottles, it's all in here, and so much more. If you want clarity, confidence, and education and support that will stick with you and your baby through all of it, the breastfeeding blueprint is it. Head to thelabelmama.com/breastfeeding. It's also linked in your show notes, and use the code podcast at checkout to save 20% and get started right now. All right, let's get you back to your episode. Okay, when it comes to the pumping stuff specifically, give me one thing that you would just want everyone to know before they ever even open the box of the pump that's in front of them or that they've chosen.
I don't know which very important detail to give. I'm going to cheat and give like
okay,
a two.
You can do two if you need to.
I'll give like 2 and 1. Number 1 is not all pumps are created equal. So those amazing ads that you're getting, those targeted ads
for the hospital grade pump.
Literally,
that was air quotes, by the way.
When brands ask me to write hospital grade, I actually tell them no. I'm like, tell me what about this is more hospital grade. Like, don't even start with me. I get so angry about it. First of all, no wearable pumps is hospital grade. So stop lying. It gets me so angry. Hospital grade means that multiple people can use it. That's what hospital grade is. It's not like they're trying to make it seem like that's some fancy extra pump motor. No, guys, no. It's just that it's multi-user so that when they wheel in the pump, multiple people can use it. So yes, I guess technically there are a lot of hospital, again, air quotes are on, guys, hospital grade pumps that are out there, but don't believe it. Like, don't believe it. Before you get a pump, I have free videos on my website, onewithapump.com. I have as many as I can. As soon as I can get a review on there, I do it. So as soon as you start looking for pumps, either take my free pump quiz. I literally ask you all the questions to decide which pump to get, or look at the reviews. Because what hurts me so much is when a mom wastes her free insurance pump on a pump that's terrible because her sister's cousin told her to get that, and it's actually a terrible pump. But she just told her to get it just because. So very important to know that not all pumps are created equal. And the wearable pumps, the targeted ads that the mom's doing yoga in the pumps, that is number 1, usually doesn't work. Number 2, they're usually not good. That's usually an extra pump. Like, you need to have a primary pump, and then you can have a secondary or wearable pump if you want. So please be very careful to note that. And then just sliding one more in is that flanges have sizes. So those plastic things that you put on your breast or even the wearable pumps, they come in different sizes. And you need to know what size you are, because otherwise you could be a size 6 shoe wearing a size 10, and that's obviously not going to be very conducive for your pumping journey. So please make sure to know that. And that's obviously something that we help do in our consultations or for Flange Guide, but very important to know that. Lo, did you find in the hospital that the nurses knew anything about phalanges? Not that it was your job. I'm just always curious.
It was our job. All of our postpartum nurses, some were CLCs, some were IBCLCs.
Were you like instructed to kind of know about flanges?
So when we first were hired and trained to do postpartum, we did LDRP, so labor, delivery, recovery, postpartum. Nurses did all the things. So when you're hired, you spend like 3 shifts shadowing the lactation consultant who is just doing lactation stuff. And so in that time, you were taught, I would say, like a lot of basics, what to look for, how to utilize these pump packs. You know, if someone did need to pump, well, we would bring in the pack of all the pieces, bring in that hospital grade pump that you mentioned that they can use, and then go through it and try to fit them with right sizes, stuff like that, like help them walk them through. So that was often a postpartum nurse job because the LC, you know, they're seeing 15 patients all discharging or whatever. So they weren't always available for everyone when they wanted them.
Yeah.
But I would say that we often like had 3 flange sizes and that was it. Or the one that comes in a lot of those packs or the hospital grade packs, I guess, that you open is, I want to say like a size 24, which doesn't fit most people. I can't remember. And so what the issue would
27, and they're most moms are like a 7. Most moms are a 17 or a 19, so it's really not great.
Yes. And so I think we had like a range of flange sizes, but we could not guarantee that we actually were fitting everyone well or even like went as small because really a lot of people are so much smaller than what comes in with all of these pumps. And so I think that would have been the primary issue that we would run into is even if there was this flange isn't like the perfect size, well, that would be what was available for those 36 hours.
Yeah.
So it's like a kind of do the best you can type thing with what's available. And then that education of, hey, when you go home, like order a smaller size or get fitted or, you know, like, so that's not a great scenario to start out with if it's not the right sizing for them. And that, I mean, I saw that all the time. And so that's probably what's going on in a lot of other places. Still.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. And they'll tell us, like, sometimes they'll be like, oh, they sized me in the hospital. And I'll be like, with all due respect, we're going to size you again because we need to make sure. And that's okay. Like I'm saying, I think it's also really important. And this is kind of for everyone, like to know what you're good at and to know what you're not good at. And there's nothing wrong with that. When, you know, one with the pump is completely virtual. And when someone says they want to see someone in person, I say, that's great. I don't sit here trying to convince them otherwise. I'm like, great, here's a referral to someone in person. It's really important that like the goal here is to help moms. So whatever way that mom needs help, if it's not going to be me, then, or I'm not the best person for the job, I will let someone else do that, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think specifically speaking about that kind of postpartum experience, again, yes, these postpartum RNs have worked with tons of people. I mean, every day if you're working postpartum, maybe you help 4 different moms breastfeed that day in your 12-hour shift and you multiply that by 6 years or 9 years or 15 years. That's a lot of experience.
Yeah.
But also there are others who all they do is literally support people with breastfeeding, like an IBC, like they're going to have probably more knowledge, but then there's practical knowledge as well. So I think, like you said, it's good you can have preferences about how you get that care. And I think it's really helpful to be open to that kind of second opinion sometimes as well. Like you're saying, you know, with this flange size fitting specifically, I'm thinking in the hospital, a lot of times we're assessing almost purely based on function, like watching and like, oh, you know, this is too big. We can tell by how, you know, it's pulling your anatomy and your tissues through. Whereas there's also other ways that you can measure as well. And we weren't whipping out measurement tools and all that. We're kind of like putting it on and we're like, this looks okay for now. Like that's just the tools that were available to us. And so even if they are helping you in the hospital, I would say it's always great to have someone else help you get that second opinion and just be sure. And maybe it's right. Maybe everyone made the right choices right away.
Yeah.
But if it's not, it's better to know.
I like to say, like, unless everything is going 100% amazing, like you're not in any pain, baby's eating, comes off, going well, you go to the doctor, baby's gaining weight, unless everything's going 100% swimmingly, I always say that you should see someone after because best case scenario, you see them and they tell you that everything is going well and to continue what you're doing. And then you're at peace, you know, which is great.
For sure.
The other thing is that they fix 5 things that are going to completely change your journey positively. So, you know, the lactation consultants in the hospital are really there as a temporary getting you through this here momentarily, but outside the hospitals where you're going to get someone that's long-term.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So you have mentioned a couple times the primary versus secondary pump, and I don't want to get too lost in the weeds about products, but there's a lot of people listening who are probably about to order one through insurance or thinking through that decision, or now they're going, I don't know what one to buy just from hearing you say that. So
no, totally.
Give a like mini education on what exactly you're saying, like why you should get this type versus this type as your primary.
Totally. So I don't like to say specific names because they could change, and someone could be listening to this in 6 months from now. And like I just changed. I used to have one that I always recommended, and then a much better one literally finally just came out, and like that's my go-to. So I don't like to say specific names, which is why I always say like I will. First of all, if you follow me on Instagram, like you will know which one I recommend because like I post it all the time, and I'll say like get this one through insurance, get this one, and I really try to help moms because if there's like the one that I recommend right now, it's pricey. So I'll be like, get this one through insurance because it's free. And then if you want to get like another one that's smaller or something else, you could pay for that one out of pocket, but at least you have the main one. So the main primary one that you're really looking for, you're essentially looking for one. Just the main thing to note is that not a wearable one. If it's one that has no wires or no tubing, it is not primary. And you can only use that 1 or 2 times a day. You're looking for one that has tubing. You don't have to go into the wall. There's a lot of them that are small that can be worked on a charge, so that's fine. But any reviews, I always like start off by saying, this is a primary pump, this is a secondary pump. So before you order through insurance, definitely look at my reviews page to see which ones they are so that you're not wasting your free pump.
Okay, go look at her stuff, you guys, and then you'll be able to figure it out with a little detective work.
Well, no, you don't have to do detective work. I tell you straight up. I say like, get this one. No, I literally just say like, get this one. Like that's the thing. Like when you come to me, like I don't want you to have to do detective work. Like I want to tell you what it is that you should do. I just don't want to like tell you the name of it because someone's listening to this in 6 months and it's a different one. They're going to be mad that they listened to this podcast and like did that. So I like to be very aware that moms listen to this at different times. So it's very important to just know that you're getting one that's a primary pump that has, I mean, this is going to sound like, I don't like to say like jargon, you know what I'm saying? But like that has a cycle, that has a vacuum, that's stuff that we all tell you. And we will very simply just say, get this one.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important because I'll be honest, I love a wearable pump, but I was not an exclusive pumper. So if it was like, oh, I'm going to pump once today we can talk about this, build a little freezer stash or something, like it was perfect. It got my, I mean, I'm not a huge oversupplier.
But exactly. Yeah, but exactly what you said, 1 or 2 times a day, whether the other 7 times you're nursing or whether the other 7 times you're using a primary pump. That's fine. Your primary method of emptying your breast could be nursing or a primary pump, but the wearable should really only be 1 or 2 times a day. And yes, by the way, guys, there will be someone that's listening to this and says, I get exactly the same amount of my wearable as I do with my primary. And I say, fantastic. Like my job is to make sure that the 80 to 90% of people have the information. And if you are in that small percentage of people who everything is going well, or, the wearable pump works for you, I am so happy. If someone comes to me and we're on a consult and I'll say like, this is really the best thing to do. And they'll say, but I really don't want to do that. I want to do X, Y, and Z. I say, okay, so let's try to find a way to make it work. And I'll tell them like, if you don't want to wake up middle of the night to empty your breast, you might not make as much milk. If you don't care, I don't care. Like I'm here to make this work for whatever works for you. I always say like, your goal is my goal. That's what I say.
It's funny. You just brought up the people who get the same amount from a wearable as they would more of a primary, because that's me.
That's great. No, that's amazing.
I've like tested it before, but
great.
I know that. And when I do my own breastfeeding, pumping education, I still am like, this is not what you should spend your money on first.
Yeah.
This is not what you should plan on using multiple times a day. Like I teach the same thing because I know that I'm in the minority, and it's a money decision too. Like you said, like I don't want someone getting some fancy wearable pump and then turns out they need something else. To really effectively empty themselves 6 times a day, and now they have to go pay out of pocket for it.
Exactly.
So it's better to do exactly what you laid out.
Yeah.
But I always laugh because I'm like, I'm not the normal over here.
and that's honestly fine. Like there's so many things that I don't practice what I preach, but that's because I know for certain things, like I am a huge oversupplier. I just have always made tons of milk. Well, actually, no, not with my first because I didn't know what I was doing. But with my second, third, and fourth, I knew what I was doing at that point, and I made tons and tons of milk. And I didn't necessarily have to go 3 hours. I was very early able to go 4 hours. I was able to drop my middle of the night pump at like 7 to 8 weeks. I would never suggest that to someone that, with a regular supply. So that's also where it's really nice to get personalized feedback about what's going on in your journey and not get everything from Instagram, because Instagram is amazing, but they are talking to the masses. And I don't know if you've seen this, but sometimes I look at someone's post and I'm just like, oh my God, like that is the worst advice I've ever seen. And like, I'm not gonna start drama. I'm not gonna like comment on their posts. I'm not gonna like start a little Instagram war. I just like, but I see people commenting and I just get so, I'm like, oh my God, like all these poor moms, like how do I help them? And I realize like, this is just out of my hands. I just have to do my own part and hope that they also find me. And like, what I say will cancel that out because that is horrible advice.
Well, I think that is the frustration of often on social media, particularly if it's not an educator and let's say it's just a mom sharing, it's a personal experience that is so specific to them as well. And so you can't apply it to the masses, but it's being sent out to the masses, right?
Yeah.
And so this can lead into that like freezer stash conversation or what a healthy supply looks like or how much you should actually expect when you pump. And maybe, Katie so-and-so pumps 9 ounces every time and it looks good and you bought the pump she had and it's like that is her and her body and it just doesn't apply to everybody. But the way the platforms work is that it goes to everybody, right? And so then as a consumer, being you the mom, like you have to do this work of like, okay, actually let's just go back to foundations that I know are true or things that I have learned are true,
which is
and
very
know
difficult.
that doesn't apply.
Yeah,
It's
which is
so
very
hard.
hard. With my first, I made like 27 ounces a day. And I remember my mom was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And I was like, no, it's not, Mom. Like people on Instagram literally are making like 90 ounces. Like this is nothing. And in hindsight, 27 was a really nice amount of milk. Like I basically was fully able to feed him until the last 2 months. Like my supply dropped and I just had no patience to get it back. So I ended up just switching to formula. But like looking back, like I wasn't as proud of myself as I should have been for making 27 ounces. And I'll have moms on consult, and I'll say, let's take a minute to realize how incredible that is. That you're making 30 ounces, 25 ounces. And they'll be like, what are you talking about? That's not good at all. And I'm like, yes, it is. The average baby eats 24 to 36 ounces in a day. So you're falling in that category, which is fantastic. And even for the moms that are making 10 ounces, 15 ounces, 20 ounces, okay, so your baby is getting 1 bottle of formula, 2 bottles of formula. You're still giving 50, 60, 70% breast milk, and then you're supplementing with what the baby needs. Like, you should be so proud of yourself. And I think a lot of moms forget that because of what they see on social media. So that's one of the first things that we do on a consult when that happens. So they'll see moms, like they look to feed it. And I'm like, hold on, like, let's take a minute here and just acknowledge how hard you're working and how amazing you are, because not on purpose. Like they just don't always hear that from their husbands or from their spouses or people with them. They don't get it. And like, I feel like it's being portrayed really well on a lot of TV shows these days, which makes me happy, is like the husband's like, no, you're doing great. Like, just get formula. And the wife's like, you don't get it. You don't freaking get it. And I feel for that mom so much. Like the husband's trying. We know he's trying, but they could be saying all the right things. But coming from someone that can't lactate, it doesn't work for us. We just don't want to hear it. So there's something we can do,
It's very true. Well, that then is like, okay, that's why we get on social media and find people who get it. But then we have to be careful about what we are finding.
Listen,
so,
there's no perfect. There's no perfect, because then you could say like, okay, don't go to social media, just book a consultation with someone. But like, what if you book a consultation with the wrong person and that person is really bad? Like I've had that also. Listen, that's how life is. Like I say also, like gut feeling is really big. People will ask me how, like, another way to prepare for breastfeeding, and I'll tell them, try to find someone. I say, get a recommendation, and not like I said, your sister's cousin's friend's mother. Like get someone that your good friend, your sister has used and had a positive experience with. And even after that, go off of vibes. I had someone that came highly recommended, and I thought she was terrible. And I literally right away went and I paid for someone else who in hindsight wasn't great either. But that's my first journey, why it went so terribly. I finally, for my fourth journey, had an incredible lactation consultant, and it completely changed everything for me. So I always say, like, go off of vibes. I even say, like, when people are booking with me, I'm like, listen to a couple of my stories. If I agitate you, do not book with me. Find someone else. Like, and that's okay. There's plenty of different people who work with people, and you just want to find someone that really just you vibe with. That seems like they know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Same as birth, right?
Yeah.
Like Jen Hamilton's book just came out, Birth Vibes, but it's like all about the vibe, right? What vibe can you create? What vibe are they bringing?
Yeah.
And that applies in this postpartum breastfeeding conversation too, for sure.
100%.
Okay. I know we kind of been on social media, but I actually want to ask one question about it specifically. What is maybe one thing you see keep showing up consistently on social media that just like drives you crazy, specific to kind of this pumping conversation, where you're like, God, I wish that rhetoric would just get out of here?
Yeah. The main thing I would say are like the targeted ads for the brownies and like the supplements. They're so expensive and they don't work. And like, even if someone says that they do work, they don't work even a tiny bit close to as much as what you can actually hear, like methods that work. So I'll have moms that come and they'll say like, oh, I've been, and by the way, these supplements are like $20 a week because you have to take like 2 a day. And they'll be like, I've been doing this for 6 months. And we're like adding that up. It's like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And it's like, oh, but my Flange sizes are probably wrong. And I'm just like, so the main thing is like the brownies are not what's going to get you. I mean, please eat the brownies if you want them. Like I am in full support of the brownies, obviously. But if you actually want to increase your supply or like know what you're doing and create a supply, the main thing you want to do is actually get help. So not the brownies and the supplements are not what's going to do it for you. They're not. And then I'll just throw one more in there is like the massive freezer stash. You don't need a massive freezer stash. I will also say on the other side, because everyone always says you don't need it, that I just stopped weaning literally actually last week at 13 months, but my son is going to get probably 16 months of breast milk, which I really am very happy about. And that's because I have a freezer stash. So you do need it. No, he could be on cow's milk. There are reasons for it if you want to. With my other kids, I actually stopped breastfeeding. Like I stopped pumping early at like 10 months and was able to continue to give them for after. So there's places for it for those that want it, but it's not necessary. That shouldn't be your goal. Your goal doesn't need that. Like I'll have moms that are like, I'm giving a bottle of formula to put a bag of milk in the freezer. And I literally am like, what are you doing?
What?
And they're like, well, I'm like, and I literally will be like, why? And they'll look at me and like, I don't want to make them feel stupid. So I'm just like, no, like, just explain to me. Like, I wanted, like, we're here to talk this through. Like, tell me why. And she's like, I just thought I should have a freezer stash. I was like, well, why are you feeding the freezer? Feed the baby. You know, and those are probably my two main things that have been since the old of time that we've seen.
Yeah. Freezer stash is definitely one of mine too. It drives me crazy. Although I appreciate you acknowledging the nuance of like, it is okay to want one. I wanted extra in the freezer. And I think sometimes someone can swing really hard this other direction and be like, if you make enough for your baby, stop wanting more. You shouldn't, don't even worry about it. If you make exactly 28 and that's what they get, you're doing great. And that's true. If your body is making what your baby needs, like your body's doing its job. But I think let's acknowledge the reality of like some of us would love to have an extra 50 ounces in the freezer too. And if that's possible for us, well, could you also help me achieve that as well? You know, and acknowledging we're allowed to want a little extra too, and not don't get lost in the weeds about it, but also you're allowed to want a little extra and just kind of dancing that line.
I think that's where, and sometimes people, I mean, no one's ever actually come at me for saying this. I always just like am on the lookout that, you know, we're so careful to make sure that all moms are always feeling included, which is important, but they're always feeling validated. Everyone's always feeling good, that we in a way are invalidating sometimes to other moms. Like, it is okay to want a freezer stash. A question that I will ask, and I'll be like, okay, so you're making oversupply. Like, do you want that? Like, if you want it, let me tell you how to keep it. And if you don't want it, let me tell you how to get rid of it. But it's okay to want it. And, you know, and like for moms that are like, I don't want formula on Instagram, you know, we'll say like, and it is okay. Obviously, like I gave my kids formula, like you do what you have to do. But for the moms that are like, I really don't want it, I'm not going to sit here and convince them unless they aren't making enough milk. Like I have a mom that like really wasn't making enough milk and she was losing her mind from it. And I'm like, listen, we need to have a conversation because I know what you want, but your baby needs to be fed. So tell me right now if you want to get formula or you want to get donor milk, because you cannot just not feed the baby for your own goals, because that's not going to be okay. But for moms who, you know, are able to make enough or whatever it is, and like, you know, their mother-in-laws are convincing them like it's fine to give a little formula, like, you know, moms who are triple feeding, right? Like they're that triple feeding, which I also call hell on earth, because that's what it is. Exactly. It's where you are starting off with nursing, then the baby isn't able to like get the milk out, or like you don't have enough milk, whatever. For some reason, it's not enough. So you give the baby a bottle, but then remember, like I said before, anytime the baby gets a bottle, you have to pump. So you're doing all three of these things every single 3 hours, hence the term hell on earth. So a lot of times when people start going down that path, people will tell them just give formula. And in fact, a lot of moms with the proper support can get through triple feeding in 2 or 3 weeks and then get back to the breast or decide to pump, whatever it is. And you don't have to incorporate formula at all. And there's nothing wrong with me saying that you don't need to do formula. Let's get you getting as much breast milk as you can for the baby. And like, that's also okay, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you brought up triple feeding. I had Kaya Lacey on a while ago. She's low supply mom. And she mentioned, she's great. Episode 53, if anyone wants to listen to it, because she's awesome.
I've known
But
she's also
she
been
brought
here
up
since like 2020. She's OG also.
yes,
That's
yes,
great.
another COVID person like
Yeah,
us.
exactly.
But she brought up triple feeding, and it was the same thing. Like, it sucks so bad. And if anyone thinks you should be doing it beyond like 2 or 3 weeks, that's not a plan. Like,
Yeah,
this is not
yeah,
something that we do for a long time. So that's an extra reminder for all of you. Like, triple
yes,
feeding is not something that's a long-term plan. So
exactly,
if you have a lactation consultant or someone who's not interrupting that plan, if it's not working, you need some different support. Like, triple
exactly.
feeding is not
Yes,
what we're
it's
going to be doing
not
for a
gonna
long
work
time.
long term. Nope, absolutely not.
Okay, Tamari, you have mentioned a few like different resources you have. I would love to throw some of them in the show notes. I'm gonna put that YouTube video about pump parts in the show notes because
Awesome,
I do think that's
awesome.
so valuable for people to just know what they're getting at when they open the box. Because I
Yeah,
always say, open your pump before, get familiar with it, like know how it works. So if you're using it on day 4 or night 3,
yeah,
you kind of know how to put this thing together and use it. It's clean
yes,
and it's ready. So I'll do
absolutely.
that video. Any other resources? I mean, you can remind us where people can find you. What else do you have for us?
Yeah, so I'm at One with the Pump literally everywhere on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, all the stuff. And then onewiththepump.com. I just have tons of free stuff on there. Any of like my really good informational videos I put inside on my website for free. So that moms can just go there and like just mess around, milk tabs,
Binge.
storing, freezing, just like get the basic rundown of everything. And then after that, we do have personalized help, which majority of moms do need, and it can be very helpful for you. You can find that also on my website. And then lastly, I have the Ultimate Pumping course, which just gives you, it's a massive database of very easily digestible, because when I say massive, I'm always like, oh no, easily digestible videos for postpartum moms for you to use as you need, and you will not be stressed about it. And I have the coupon code BEHOLD for you guys, and I'll send it to you also for you to grab that as well for 15% off. And we are here to help you. Like it's really difficult. And when you don't know what you're doing, it is 10 times more difficult than it needs to be when you are trying to do this on your own and you're trying to get all your information from Instagram, social, ChatGPT. That's going to make it a whole lot worse. I will always ChatGPT my own questions to make sure they have not gotten what I have to say, and they have not.
The other day
Like,
I asked Chat something that they had gotten wrong prior, and it made me really angry, and they now get it right. But I was like, I'm going to check up on them and see if
yes,
they're
that's
saying
so
the right
funny.
thing now because I'm annoyed about it.
It's so funny.
Don't go to Chat, go somewhere else, guys.
No, don't. Let us help you, please.
Okay, last question that I ask everyone before they go. What is something in your life right now that's just bringing you a ton of joy?
Oh, good question. It's being home with my baby. Like I said before, very quickly, I used to be a teacher and I used to have to go back at 8 weeks. And my baby just turned 1, and I've been home with him the whole time. And it's such a great experience. It was just such a great motherhood experience to have. And I didn't have it with my 3. And I'm just very grateful to be, even though he's, walking around, making it a little difficult, but I love him, and I'm thankful that I could be home with him.
I'm glad you can too.
Yeah.
My 4th just turned 2.
No.
And when they do start walking around and being a little busy, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm not getting so much done anymore, am I?
No. Well, yeah.
But
Well,
it's so
now I have a
sweet to be able
babysitter
to.
because I couldn't do both. But it's nice. Like I just saw like on the camera, like she took him for a walk while I'm sitting here doing a podcast. Like it's great. Like we help out. We do together.
Awesome.
Which
That's
is awesome.
awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening to the Lo and Behold podcast. I hope there was something for you in today's episode that made you think, made you laugh, or made you feel seen. For show notes and links to the resources, freebies, or discount codes mentioned in this episode, please head over to loandbeholdpodcast.com. If you aren't following along yet, make sure to tap subscribe or follow in your podcast app so we can keep hanging out together. And if you haven't heard it yet today, you're doing a really good job. A little reminder for you before you go. Opinions shared by guests of this show are their own and do not always reflect those of myself and the Labor Mama platform. Additionally, the information you hear on this podcast or that you receive via any linked resources should not be considered medical advice. Please see our full disclaimer at the link in your show notes.